Those costumes are absolutely dreary. And what idiot are you?
Lost Kingdoms is a deck-building action RPG created by the developers FromSoft. They've always had a penchant for Western medieval fantasy, never neglecting the function of a castle while keeping that unreal, grandiose scale of their world design. That's not all they've done though. People have gone backwards diving into and appreciating the other series. Echo Knight especially has been making a resurgence in the YouTube scene lately. And with the new Armored Core on the way, the previous titles are also making new fans. However, even when they do make a mecha game, sometimes they can't help themselves with games like Gride, which asks the very bold question, what if medieval, but robot? And I really feel that Lost Kingdoms falls right into their niche. What if medieval, but card? You are Katia, Princess of Alanja. A black fog spreads around the world, causing whoever enters it to never come back. The King of Alanja sets out to investigate and seeks help of the other kingdoms. While he is away, the black fog envelops the rest of the land. Now at her doorstep, Katia heeds the words of her father, takes the kingdom's runestone, an object that promised the prosperity of the kingdom, to search for her father. The moment you gain control of Katia, you get hit with a 1-2 punch. First with, oh wow, this room looks rather detailed. Followed immediately by, oh, hello Endless Void, come here often. Rather than simply talking about how the game looks, I kinda need to talk about the camera first. The camera hangs overhead at a 90-degree angles for everything that's not a cutscene, summon, or shop. You can zoom in and out, but that's all you really have. The effect this has on the presentation is everything gets the same angles no matter where you are, and like, duh, a samey camera makes everything look similar. Thing is, as I kept playing, it tricked my brain into making it look like a tabletop RPG map. Like, I could take a screenshot of a battle and use it as a phony Kickstarter for my new VTT. If the purpose was to frame the world in this diorama context, or to add that detached look, implying that someone or something is looking down on her from on high, or it was a method to hide some visual jank, either way it adds some sense of style to a world that was lacking in some areas. Wherever that style works for you, though, is another matter entirely. It's a fine camera for exploration too, since the fields lack any, well, action? Anything you need to do is context sensitive, so the camera can't really get in the way anyway.
What a thrill.
There are areas that are more outstanding than others. The ones that lean into bold, loud colours, usually with man-made geometry that really helps the game shine, compared to the more generic, grassy plains. It has that Dreamcast-style aesthetic. Adding to that effect is the lighting. The level in the Princess tends to be lit by a single object from one angle, and it's not hard to notice that. A decent chunk of levels change the light's colour and angle to be more dramatic, which is appreciated, though as a consequence, there are a few instances of me not being able to see important things thanks to that decision. Here's a screenshot. It contains a red fairy, which is one of the game's collectibles. Can you see it? Yeah, I'll give you a second. It's here, by the way.
Every puzzle
I
has
could
an answer.
not see that thing during gameplay. Here it is in motion, much easier. I hope you're not colorblind. Another time I got ass blasted by something in the corner, and again I struggled to comprehend it. Get out of the darkness and fight me, coward! You'll know when you get into a fight, since the game will carve out a part of the level for the battle, complete with wibbly-wobbly dimension planes, ooh. And it's quite possible that your first experience with the battle system is being farted on. I don't know. I think someone on the dev team had a kink. But anywho, looking past that stylistic choice, we have combat. At the start of a fight, you are dealt 4 cards, 1 to every face button, and each card represents an action. Cards are based off of an in-game monster and come in 3 varieties. Weapon-type cards are the easiest to use and are by far my favourite. I wonder what card I should use. I better check my deck for something different. Nah. No. Perfect! Using one of these cards quickly brings out a monster to take a swing at anything in front of you, then vanishes. They come with multiple charges and lots of different flavors of attacks. Wide swings, big overheads, ranged attacks, homing projectiles, thrusts, pillars. What I love about them is their immediacy. No breaks in the combat, I always feel in control. And while all cards give invulnerability frames, it makes more sense to me to exploit that using weapon cards, to blow through the enemy's attacks with Big Sword McGee. Summon type cards stop everything going on to perform a much more elaborate action. Cadia disappears while a monster takes her place. These cards can range from a big werewolf swing to a spider's web or a support in action. While I'm not a fan of the game grinding to a halt every summon, I won't deny that the time it takes for the action to come out, along with a massive amount of iframes, can be a welcome break for you to collect your thoughts and plan out your next action out. That and you create your own decks, more on that later, so you have the final say on how much of these you bring along. Last and perhaps least is the independent type, which from this point forward I'll be calling a unit type card, as I feel that conveys the concept a lot better. Using a unit card will deploy that monster on the field on your side, with its health slowly depleting, represented by the card burning. I'ma be real, unit cards are not my cup of tea. I gotta spend time throwing them down, making sure to throw them in the right direction so they don't have their backs turned to the enemies. Then I gotta hope the AI plays ball, which is a problem for both sides if I'm to be honest. Or make sure they can actually fit through the bloody door, which again, yeah. And when they finally meet, it becomes a game of who can stunlock who first. I did settle on 2 unit cards to bring along that seem to perform better than the rest. It's good practice to have variety in your deck, even if you're lopsided to swords. The 2 I brought were Landsharks and Catoblippe. Blasty Boy. Landsharks zip around the battlefield real fast, making them hard to hit, and will backflip after every attack, doubling down on their evasion. They're really pesky things, even when you're fighting them yourself, which creates a great opening for the Blasty Boys. Unable to move at all, and with a turn radius that is very slow, which means they are sitting ducks, but they have a ranged attack, with a chance to petrify. Mix and match these 2 for an easy peasy victory. Before entering a mission, you can mix and match whatever you want when creating a deck, and can I just say that this deck creation screen is really easy to use, with a clear delineation between the cards you own on the left, and the cards currently in your deck to the right. Why am I bringing up something as simple as deck construction? How did you manage to screw up something so simple? How? No reason. No other limitations are put on you in terms of deck building, other than can you literally afford to use the card in a fight? Every card costs something to use and enemies drop that resource on hit and death. So it's a good habit to be proactive in combat by sticking near the action, so you can hoover up all the magic stones. These stones also act as experience points for the whole deck too. If you lack the magic to use something, you can always risk your health instead, which I think is a really good system for promoting aggression in the player. This all being said, you won't really have a choice on what your deck looks like early on, so you better start raiding the chests, since these will become a lifeline when exploring. Now the game doesn't explain this too well, so I'll try my best. You can bring any deck you've constructed to a stage. As these cards get used in battle, they will be removed for the rest of this level, unless you brought cards that actively fight against this card drain. Any cards you acquire in the level gets added to your overall collection and can supplement your currently used deck at deck points, but only for this current run of the level. This system is messy, but I can't argue how it pushes players to try new cards on the fly. Always a good thing. What happens when you run out of cards? You perish. Once you run dry, you better hope that the last card killed the opponent, because otherwise all you can do is stand there looking pretty. And unlike those 18+ games you like so much, this has absolutely no benefits. I mean, you could flee from battle, you would still have nothing to fight with, so it's a good idea to start tailoring your deck to a given level later into the game. There's a straightforward elemental weakness system. Can't remember what's good against water? No problem. Near your health bar you will see what looks like UI visual clutter at first, but it's actually an elemental chart. Nice touch. The game informs you on what elements you'll run into, unless it says arcane. At that point, bring what you like. Thankfully, you can exit the world map at will, keeping all the cards you found and experience gained. I hope you fully explored that level too, because there's no going back. Once you see that level completed, it's time to move on. Thankfully, it's easy to figure out when that will happen. Sometimes it will literally signpost it. Afterwards, it's a good idea to pop into the shop to spend your experience and generally tailor your collection to better suit your playstyle. Here you can also learn about the game's optional maps. Lost Kingdoms is pretty linear in structure, especially the story missions, but these optional areas invite you to poke around to find secrets, since the structure is a little more open-ended in these levels. Really, you might engage in a person-on-person fight, and they are a highlight of the playthrough. These duels, as I'll be calling them, work mostly like regular fights, except the opponent plays by the same rules as you do. Well, mostly. I think they have an infinite card pool and have this little side dodge. As someone who focused on weapon type cards, it felt great to weave between them their units, and their cards to land a beefy hit. Then get the hell out of there. There's only 3 of these in the game, and honestly, I kinda wish there were more, though I might have been singing a different tune if I was asked to do these more often. Once they have their unit cards down, they really like to use summons in all of their unskippable glory, over and over again. So perhaps 3 was the right choice. And I feel that way with the whole game. Lost Kingdoms is about 6-ish hours long, and that's with the optional missions added in. I definitely would have liked more content to extend the runtime. That being said, there's no real evolution in the game's mechanics past the duels. Little variety outside of getting new cards and any types of objectives that were not explored in the optional stuff. Although, let's indulge that thought for a second, and say that it did tread the same water in the goal of making the game longer. It would have been a fine line before it all became samey. A line it comes close to crossing thanks to the 4 secret levels! Remember when I said it was 6 hours long? I lied. In the last but one map, you can enter these doors that boot you back to the world map, and unlock a map focused entirely on a single element. Notice I said boot, not complete, meaning that this stage gets played 5 times to grab every secret level and a completion for the story, assuming you did not finish it because remember, no we're playing stages, at least until you see the credits. These secret levels contain some very powerful cards to use, while also containing a stone tablet that fleshes out the lore and gives you more of an overview of the world. Something that's a bit lacking in the main game, because at the end of the game there's 4 people left, so there's not much talking going on. In the beginning, there was nothing. The gods of creation, destruction, and harmony created a world out of the void. The world started to flourish with life. However, the gods could not agree on who should rule this world. Creation and destruction made monsters to fight in their war of control. The humans known as the Little Ones could do nothing in the face of such power. Eventually, it escalated to the point of both gods sealing away each other, causing the monsters to fade. Harmony, worried that creation and destruction would return, split the world in 2 and reinforced the seals with 10 runestones, 5 for each continent. These runestones were given to the Little Ones and told that if they protect these stones, their kingdoms would flourish. Harmony then became the light, shielding the continent from each other. The reason why the fog enveloped the world was thanks to the enchanter, a man named Thalnos. Collecting all the runestones from the other continent, he seeked the remaining runestones of this continent in order to become all-powerful. Throughout the game, Katia also encounters Helena, princess of a fallen kingdom on the other continent, mirroring Katia's situation, trying to obtain more power in order to beat Thalnos. Unfortunately, she ultimately fails, entrusting her mission to you. Katia travels to find the god of creation. She informs you that the seals have been broken, and you are the only person who can stop Thalnos. At which point we storm the Enchanter's castle and all of its edgelord decor. Cool corpse dragon platforms, dude! Katia comes face to face with Thalnos and his hair beard. Upon defeat, Thalnos reveals that he was an acting vessel of the god of destruction. Prepare to die. Let me quickly touch on this fight. It was an absolute pain to understand this at first. He summons these elemental totems around the arena, 2 at a time. He's invulnerable while summoning these, by the way. If all 4 totems are alive for 7, count 'em, 7 seconds, the arena is enveloped in an explosion that reduces your HP to 1. At which point he will repeat this summoning ritual, which means more totems, more explosion. Add to the fact that the totems have this weird hitbox and it amounts to a frustrating mess, until you realize you can hang on the edges to avoid the explosion. Bug or feature? You decide! This truly is the uwu of Lost Kingdoms. With this newfound knowledge, the god of destruction is defeated. Realizing that the Little Ones have grown up, he departs this world along with his sister, the god of creation. The black fog disappears, the 2 continents will learn of each other, Katia becomes queen and unifies the world under one kingdom. Lost Kingdoms has a really good base concept. I know that cards summoning things, usually monsters, became a big trope in Japan. I myself don't know the names of most of the franchises out of Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is probably the most popular version of this. So there's no surprise this concept was explored in video game form. Again, my lack of knowledge on Japanese media limits me here, so feel free to inform me about other series that took this idea and rolled with it. With FromSoft's take being a pretty good first outing, and it really suits the action RPG formula. If I had to criticize Lost Kingdoms, it would be that it established an idea really well, and that's it, really? Like I said earlier, there's no changes to the core idea as the game progresses, just bigger numbers. Can you imagine what a sequel could add to this gameplay loop? Oh, speaking of... Developed in just a year's time, Lost Kingdoms 2 is very unassuming at first. Looking at the title screen, you would think it's just an expansion pack, thanks to how it recycles it from the first game. What if red? But blue. Hit new game and we have a CG cutscene! The first one had an intro that would play on startup, featuring Katia summoning monsters, but that was more of an eye-catcher, something that would have been playing on an actual store as a cycle to grab your interest. Lost Kingdoms 2 launches with a girl in a carriage, being escorted out and left at a village. The reveal of the red runestone, as well as a fight scene between the main character, T.R.A.G Grimfate. I promised I wouldn't laugh. T.R.A.G Grimface. Ah, there's the tag stump. Where have you been, buddy? 200 years from the events of the last game, the land has prospered under the rule of its queens, thanks to the runestone. Which, now I think about it, Katia would have one of the few left, if not even the last runestone, since each one she collected fused with hers. Anyway, people coveted that power and made imitation runestones, not as powerful, but still strong enough to use cards, sowing the seeds of conflict for later on. Tara is currently with the Band of the Scorpion, a bandit group that targets wealthy people. In such a residence is where we begin the game. Say goodbye to the endless void, friends, as now we are third person. While by itself it's not that big of a gameplay change, as most of the areas allow you to change back to the top-down camera on a whim. Regardless, it does tons to breathe life into these areas. Lost Kingdoms 1 has some lovely areas when it comes to aesthetical design, but the sequel with its new perspective can play with depth, vistas, set pieces. The variety helps a ton, keeping everything fresh considering that Lost Kingdoms 2 shares quite a few locations with the first. Seeing Gromtull Desert show up on my map was already a nice little treat, since in both games it is optional. But loading in with a brand new perspective, hearing the same music? And while the map design is different, it still contains the secret cave that the first one had with the 3 chests, albeit without the hunt to unlock it. You can tell the devs cared about this world to re-include little things like that, and like I said, it's not the only retread. The bridge, runestone caves, the most unfortunate village to exist. A lot of the game builds up with you reaching Alanja Castle, the starting point of the first title, which is now the ending of Lost Kingdoms 2. It's not blatant asset reuse either. Only 2 areas have almost matched in geometry, and even then it tried something a little different. Sovereign Bridge you travel in the opposite direction, with different enemy encounters and timed gate and buttons that need to be held down. The other being Grenfell Cathedral, that got turned into a non-combat location. That's a new thing too. I don't know why I was so shocked to find a JRPG town in Lost Kingdoms 2. Maybe because the first game was so focused on its rigid gameplay loop of combat, explore, combat, deck building, combat. But it was a genuine surprise for the location to exist. It's not the most robust town. You never really need to come back here after the first visit, since afterwards the shop is accessible from the world map. Still has treasure to find, shady people to talk to, trash to pick up and throw away, topped off with a lovely view of the town. It does come with a cost. The game runs at 30 FPS. It's not the most responsive game to begin with, nor are twitch reflexes needed, so it won't affect gameplay that much if you're sensitive to that sort of thing. In the same way that Dark Cloud 2 dropping the frame rate had a tangible effect that you could feel. However, going from silky smooth 60 to functional 30 back to back definitely screwed with me a little. I guess we should talk about combat, huh? Since I already went over the core system in the first game, we won't go over the things that remain the same, so that means weapon cards are still my favourite. They buffed my Dragonite, I'm so proud! Summon cards are still great for catching your breath, now having 2 attacks which greatly increases the variety of them. And the unit cards... Never before in my life have I been disappointed over a fart attack being nerfed. Unit cards are more hit and miss in this title. In Lost Kingdoms 1, once a battle started, you were locked into a square arena with usually a decent amount of space. And while the AI pathfinding was dumb at times, it would figure it out. Here a fight could take place almost anywhere, and that alone harms the units that relied on movement to avoid attacks. This also brings up another weird wrinkle. Again, in the first game, Once the battle was over, the card would just return to your hand, albeit with some time used on it. That means that the next battle you can just throw it down again. Here in the second, you can either hope the monster will follow you, assuming it's capable of movement, or you can send it to the bottom of your deck, meaning you have to dig through your entire 30 card deck again just to use it. Oh, so unit cards are bad then? No, some of these cards are legit really strong. The standout for me is the Elf card. It's a unit that will maintain a minimum attack range. Any enemy that gets close to it will prompt the elf to run away again to stay at that range, complete with a 180 jump shot once it's reached its optimal distance again. It complements the game design really well, and while it still does have jank because unit card, it's still really good. You'll just have to try everything you require to find the gems in the rough. Made much easier by the cards that used to buff or debuff enemies, or were just a little unorthodox, have been reclassified as support cards. Still not my thing as I'm in Camp Unga Bunga, it's still a great quality of life change for everyone. Transformation cards are Lost Kingdoms' attempts to inject progression into the formula. Unlike the first game, you are able and encouraged to revisit levels. Multiple times you'll find a chest just out of reach, or a series of ascending platforms, wondering how you would acquire these chests in this game system. She can't jump, that's illegal. And the answer is cards that temporarily change you into a new form. First with this lumbering big guy who seems to not have a use at first. You just become a big target. Little ways in, you find this mechanism in the forest. Flip it on, and now these glowy floor tiles are your best friend. Transforming on top of it causes the big guy to start swinging, destroying any destructible walls you find, or any monsters dumb enough to stand in your way. The next one is smaller, but just as important. Jumpers. They jump. Okay, thank you for watching the video, make sure to subscribe on your way out. The actual platforming is a little stiff since jumping and landing has a noticeable delay. Otherwise it works just how you expect. The glow tiles make them jump more in case you were wondering. The transformation cards are a good idea, but they're stuck inside Lost Kingdoms' deck system. Let me tell you about the ledge incident. Fossil Boneyard is basically the jumper tutorial. You can't even progress through the first room without one of these cards. This is fine enough, but there's a good chance you'll only have one of them throughout the entire level. Jumper cards let you jump the multiple ledges in this map. Please note, however, that you cannot drop from high ground without a card. Try to and you'll just run up against an invisible wall. Transformation cards also have a timer like unit cards. Time spent transformed or attacking depletes its health. Got all that? Now, imagine you're halfway into a level and you lose that card. No problem. The game accounted for this in the form of blue fairies. They were in the first game too, but they were less vital. They're more important in this one since they don't despawn when the battle starts. Anyway. The blue fairies have a 1 in 3 chance of returning a card to your deck. And look, the fairies spawn right here. So, all I have to do is wait and get my jumper card back. Right? You know when you start doing something and it becomes clear that you're doing it the hard way, but your pride still gets the better of you? You've already waited this long, might as well tough it all out, right? Otherwise, it would have been a waste of time to stand here and waste your time. Eventually, I just restarted the level, which is what I should have done right from the start. The fact that this can occur anywhere in any level is a detriment to the system, grinding the game to a halt as I sift through my entire deck, looking for the one card that moves me forward. In the long run, it's not that much of a problem. My biggest gripe is that it's just never used for main progression, after Fossil Boneyard. No final test on the mechanics. The map with the flight cards is used to show you that the flight cards exist. Thankfully, you do need these cards to unlock some of the game's bonus content, so it's not all a loss. Let's compliment Sandwich this part about combat by ending with the Z effect, which is a dumb name and I'll be calling it Z Boost as that sounds hella rad. By holding down the Z button, you can activate Z Boost for any of your cards. This will highlight said card in blue, double its magic cost, and increase its potency. Not only does this make weaker cards viable for longer, which is good for everyone, it of course turns strong cards into absolute monsters. Savvy players who are paying attention to elemental weakness can tactically Z-boost on the fly to delete problems before they begin. then simply deactivate the boost right after. Or just play it risky, as the more you level up, the more magic you have to play with. Enemies drop more magic stones on death anyway, so why not go all out? Oh, a nice little lore bit I do like about the magic stones is overcapping them now turns them into money along with the experience, which is a nice little change. As runestones are a lot more common now, they have an actual commercial value now as a power source. Wanna know where else took me by surprise? Voice acting.
Hey, what did I say? Confound that girl. She won't even accept thanks. But no problem, as long as she keeps doing her job.
Granted, it's pretty sparse, but hey, look at that. Mouth animation. Wow, look at it all go. All those flapping faces. The actual voice acting itself is fine enough, it's just the direction that's iffy. Soul Good Guy over here acts how you think he would.
But you know what to do, eh?
Victor, it's too dangerous for one person. I'll go with her. Want to come with me to meet the Queen? The Kandari army has surrounded the castle, but they can't stop us, right? They'll never know what hit him.
I also like King Leod's performance. It just doesn't suit the scene or his animations. I'm not sure which one, but there's something a little off about it.
This, you there, that rune stone on your back. Yes, it is! Oh, no wonder the Queen never uses her rune stone. And to think I was worried. It's right here, the true rune stone right under my nose. Oh, what a happy day.
See also Victor's tragic death scene.
Get away! Get out of here!
Rest in piss. Sometimes it's the music that makes the scene bad. The Queen's theme has this threatening jester quality, or like some power figure you're not supposed to take seriously. So slap that track behind her and T.R.A.G meeting up and it really undermines everything the scene was going for.
Oh, I'm sorry. After Mother died, they made me queen. I was just a little girl. But without a runestone, I was a queen without power. I was always terrified that the people would discover that the runestone was lost.
I've been reserving talk about the soundtrack until now because I wanted to contrast the differences between the two games. Lost Kingdoms OST is surprisingly experimental. Regardless of the intent, it provides such a variety that you just don't know what you're gonna get. Will it reflect the danger of a ruined village? The isolation of being in a graveyard during a thunderstorm. A Spyro ice level. The skies of an aerial stage in Drakengard? Forgotten ruins of a JRPG water dungeon. Don't get me wrong, we have some that don't land personally, like this place cursed with poison wells that has a pipe organ groove? I don't know, it sounds like it belongs in Goosebumps. It all led up to them figuring out how Lost Kingdoms 2 would sound, and I think it's the superior soundtrack to the first one tone-wise, especially when it comes to consistency. even if that comes at the cost of some of the more forgettable tracks just being okay and nothing more. As to whether that means it's a better OST, I personally prefer the variety approach. I like being surprised, I like hearing different things all the time. But again, that's personal, I can see the flip side to that. No longer will you enter a card shop and wonder if someone is playing Hades in the next room. I think its best tracks are the ones that lean into the sample beat / lo-fi but without the low part vibe. I'm not music illiterate enough to tell you what makes it sound that way, but hopefully I can show by example. So with our boss dead, T.R.A.G has the equivalent of a WMD on her back, being chased by King Leod's machines, the only place T.R.A.G can run to is the Langer, where we meet back up with Soul Good Guy. He was a member of the Scorpions with us, but he never stood out, somehow looking more underdesigned than the actual copy-pasted NPCs he shared space with. He also saved us after encountering a monster in the Runestone Caverns.
Looks like I got here just in time. Are you hurt? Don't you hate monsters that don't have the good sense to stay dead?
As we arrive at the castle, it turns out it's under siege now that King Leod knows that the current queen does not have a proper runestone. Breaking through the front line, we meet up with Rashianu, T.R.A.G's twin sister, who immediately takes our runestone and puts us under house arrest. So for the next level, we are defenseless. It is nice to explore Langer Castle in more detail than just the 3 rooms from the first game. You really get the sense of reverence the world has for Cadia here too. She, and by extension you, did save the world after all. At the top, we enter the Queen's bedroom, where we learn why T.R.A.G was sent away. Langer has always been ruled by queens since Cadia, but this time there were twin daughters. Worried that one of them might be used to start a civil war, T.R.A.G was sent away in order to keep the kingdom in check. To make sure she was safe, her mother gave T.R.A.G the runestone and told her to protect it. Right after that heartfelt scene, the monster from the Runestone Cavern attacks the castle in a perfectly choreographed cutscene. Welcome to the really awkward part of this level. No runestone means no cards. So you might think that Soul Good Guy needs to do the fighting for you. That's a slow but promising idea, until he fucking dies. Yeah, he has a health bar you can't see. New plan, I aggro them and he does all the work. Very slow, but that works too. There is a third option, but I did not think about it until my second playthrough. You can just run through everything. Why do we bother? Running away at least makes the next cutscene make more sense as we are cornered. Soul Good Guy throws us into the elevator and makes a noble sacrifice to look really cool.
Farewell, T.R.A.G. And remember what it is to be loved.
Trying to re-enter the castle is pointless as I set up this stupid regenerating elemental machine. So we need to unlock the vault next to the castle to acquire the God of Destruction. Yeah, that guy. Makes sense that Cadia would keep that somewhere. Back inside the castle, we find Soul Good Guy. Poor guy fucking died for real. Rest in peace, you 2000s creator character. Moving further in, we find King Lear trapped inside this colourful spaghetti machine. Why is this here? Why is he trapped? Don't know. A lesser explained plot point is that the big monster is feeding off the souls of people. I think King Lear tried to use it as a weapon, lost control of it, and built this contraption to keep the monster away from him. The only other way this could have happened is if the monster put him there and what? The moment you free him, he of course sees the error of his ways and helps T.R.A.G defeat. Just kidding, he tries to fight you when he's dirt. Are you ready to meet God? Again? At the top of the castle is the monster, growing into something much worse. It becomes the god of harmony, or at least its body? The last god to exist. Unfortunately, its goal is rather dumb. Humans fight each other equal no harmony. Kill humans equals complete harmony. I get it. Harmony's last plan to split the world in two when trying to keep the world protected, after the gods sealed them away, only worked for so long. But I feel that helping the Eruyt maintain peace would have been the better plan. Though I assume this is just the body of harmony, containing its base desire to keep the balance without harmony's mind. Regardless, the boss itself is slow and plodding. Lots of space where you can just chill without anything happening. Blue fairies spawn here too, so no matter how much you struggle, patience is rewarded with resources. Just bait this ranged attack and whack it a bunch. Eventually it falls over, tells you that humans will fight each other forever, and that's about it. T.R.A. announces it's good to have friends again and walks off with her sister. Roll credits. Of course, that's not the end of the content. Reloading your save unlocks the Proving Ground, which would be an exciting prospect if it was any good. A 24-floor dungeon that consists of the same room and hallway copy-pasted 24 times. Maybe in a different color. Apparently in the original Japanese release, each floor had riddles or puzzles to do. Even if it was worse than what we have now, it would have been something. Let me give you the Proving Ground experience. You have now completed a floor in the Proving Grounds. Good job, viewer. At the bottom are two back-to-back fights, one of which has an attack that drains an entire element from your deck. If you fail at any point, have fun starting back from the beginning. Not worth it at all. A better use of your time is the Sacred Battle Arena that contains some optional bosses. In order to open the doors though, you need to raise your affinities, something I've neglected to mention because it's a half-baked idea. Cards have an affinity level, and if you don't match that number, too bad, the card costs double. The issue is that it's really easy to manipulate. Enter a map, spam cards until almost dead, leave, and repeat. So it becomes really questionable as to why affinity is even a thing. Anyway, back to the arena. It also has battles against old runestone masters, including Katia. No pomp or grandeur, cutscene, battle theme from the first game, just fight. Sure? Defeating her does offer you a juicy option, however. It asks if you want to take on Katia's responsibilities. Accepting allows you to import your entire card collection from the first game? Excuse me? Yeah, it's all here, including my 30 Dragon Knights. Of course I had 30, what's wrong with me? This can be accessed around about halfway through the game too, so it's well worth the time investment to beat for an incredible reward like this. If you played the first game, that is. The last thing to bring up is the Strangers. Multiple areas contain a masked guy that once approached will start throwing cards at you. Defeating them rewards you with a runestone. Collect all of them and a certain key allows you to fully explore the nobleman's residence from the very beginning of the game. It always had this spooky music. wonder what's up with that. In the center of the house is a map that also unlocks a place called Izamat Urber, which is also very... I gotta be honest, this is why I love playing games I haven't heard anything of personally. You never know what is lying under the surface sometimes. Placing the runestones down and lighting up all the faces unlocks the door in the back. Admiring the decor, you find a necklace. One stone of sealing. A mystery. I love those. Although I've already done every piece of side content I can get my hands on, nothing happens when I beat the boss again. Alright, maybe a quick Google will speed things along. Okay, fantastic wiki page for Stone of Sealing. The good ending of Lost Kingdoms 2 requires you to obtain the Stone of Sealing before completing the Langer Castle. God damn it. Reset the clock! Time for another playthrough! Alright, we're back at the castle. We're being backed into the lift. This is all the same so far. Oh! T.R.A.G gave him the necklace!
What?
That's good! Oh, so maybe Soul Good Guy won't be dead in the corner on our return trip. Oh? He's alive? No cutscene? No sigh of relief? I swear, if this is the only change... That's the third death for the God of Harmony? What now? Here's the outro, and there he is. It's a small difference.
So there you are, T.R.A.G. Come on. The whole kingdom is waiting to see the great hero. Especially me.
If you know about it, you might as well try for the ending, as I suspect that most people will do the side content to look for cool cards anyway. Even if you pick up the stone way too late like me, it took less than 3 hours to replay the game to get the good ending, so it's not even that much of an investment if you do end up missing it. You know, skipping cutscenes and everything. I think Lost Kingdoms 2 was the stronger game overall, it just fumbles some really obvious things that should have been no-brainers. Like changing the way you build decks from this nice and easy to use side-by-side view to this, let's show them every card they own and choose the cards to add without an actual summary of what they picked, just this card number in the bottom right that's easy to miss. Or the fact you can dodge bonus levels by exiting the stage wrong? Here I see some beefy boys and where's clearly an entrance to a castle, so I just run straight past them. I enter the gate, and it's back to the world map. I had to defeat the big red guy to unlock it. All that being said, it's still a solid title that I hope gets some kind of re-release along with the first game. With Mega Man Battle Network coming out and doing numbers, Battle Network's spiritual sequel One Step from Eden, or even Wizard of Legend taking the essence of the combat into a roguelike form, games that incorporate deck building elements are everywhere nowadays. But we're not done with the video. I still have 2 games to touch on before we go. The before and after of Lost Kingdoms. Yeah, that random mention of frame Gride was not just for incredibly niche street cred. It might actually be the lost sequel to Lost Kingdoms 2! You know, apart from it coming out 4 years prior and actually having nothing to do with anything but a rack and dream. It's a 1v1 mecha game on the Dreamcast. The single player isn't anything complex, but it has enough to play around in and learn the ropes of the game in the same way that the Soul Calibur modes did. Gameplay-wise, it's unfortunately limited by both the console and the TV. I don't know how many of you actually held a Dreamcast controller. There was no DualShock. The one analog is used for camera control, but it's on the same side as the D-pad, which is for moving. Trying to keep a bead on an enemy buzzing around your blind spots is an absolute pain. Frame Gride is screaming out for widescreen. However, we're just too early for that standard. Otherwise, it's a fine game. It's hard to do strafe boosting wrong in a video game. Getting in position to use my Mega Cannon, knocking the enemy mech down and just punching the hell out of them. The main reason I wanted to showcase this real quick is despite it having no links to Lost Kingdoms, it sure feels like it should. Warfare has become mechanized, something that would have eventually happened in Argwell, thanks to King Leod's machines. The mechs can summon squires, independent units that fight for you that come in all sorts of flavors. It features a world map with a lot of shared locations. On victory, you're rewarded with these magic stones that you can combine to make equipment. Short of learning Japanese and translating it myself, we can never know how much DNA is shared with Lost Kingdoms. This is a fan localization after all, no offense to the person who did it. Without their efforts, I wouldn't be able to play it anyway, so genuinely, thank you. The game also has its own merits. The presentation can be really extra. Starting a new game has you walk down a torchlit corridor as several characters ask you what parts you want for your new mech. Opponents all have a tarot card associated with them. Camera flourishes when it sweeps through the treetops or diving into water. It all feels like an aesthetical blueprint for Lost Kingdoms. It was also fun to mess around with, but why don't we go in the complete opposite direction? Kuon is a PS2 survival horror from the same producer as all the games I've talked about, even Cookies and Cream. One Atsushi Taniguchi. Going straight from the high fantasy of his previous games, yes, I guess Cookies and Cream is high fantasy, fight me, straight into something a lot more intimate. The strongest aspect of Kuon is the presentation. Taking place at an isolated shrine in Japan where things have clearly gone bad. From the word go, it has these fantastic camera angles, slowly panning along with the player. Dark areas take a little while for your eyes to adjust before everything becomes visible. Save points are these little paper boats you sail in the river, which become diegetic objects that will float downstream. Menus are full of little movements as the draped cloth unfurls. Sound too is just as good. Lots of natural noises from rustling trees sharing the same space as other, more questionable sounds. Music that appears to have no source starting as you get close to an area, only to abruptly stop. Unfortunately, it's not all sunshine and silkworms. The game has jump scares, and that's fine. A well-placed spook is an effective tool. Would be a shame if it just blasted the screen with a loud flash at random. This flash also drains your health too, so you sit there to regain it all back. And that's where we have problem 2. You have a button to fully heal at any time, which makes the combat anemic. Oh crap, I'm injured! Use one of the 10 healing items I found? Nah, let me just leave and meditate. Please note, I'm not big into survival horror. I like the tropes of the genre, but I've not beaten any of the classics. Only the ones that have played around with the formula. Kudelka, T.R.A.G, Parasite Eve, etc. Even I can tell that this kills any tension the enemy should bring. At least it brought ideas from Lost Kingdoms. During the game you will find talismans that you can equip to the square and triangle buttons. These cards, shall we say, are your survival horror weapons. I summon a spider, get him buddy! Ah shit. It's a cool system to bring into a game like this, treating the card system like a limited resource, but it's still a resource, and I'm supposed to conserve those, right? This is survival horror, so stabbing a go. Which, as I've said, is consequence-free stabbing. That's a sentence I didn't think I'd ever say out loud. I would recommend Kuon for those who want a comfy Japanese horror game, complete with the vibes, without really worrying about the difficult mechanics this genre brings. So let's wrap up this video with an appeal to you, the viewer, to go back into our history and find games that look appealing to you. Emulators are really easy to use these days, or even take a peek at the avalanche of remasters and remakes we are getting lately. I, for the longest time, thought that my favorite genre was first-person puzzle platformers. After playing so many games for the channel, it became clear that I really love action RPGs. The Dark Clouds made it to this channel, but there were so many that never did that I really loved going through. Brave Fencer Musashi, the Terra Enigma trilogy, I would have never re-examined my tastes without this YouTube channel. So maybe your new favorite is not the new big release, but something that slipped under your radar years ago. All you really need is a shovel and a spare evening. Who knows what you'll dig up?